In this podcast episode, the host welcomes Charlie Houpert, the founder of Charisma on Command, a platform renowned for teaching communication, confidence, and charisma to hundreds of millions worldwide. Charlie opens up about his evolving understanding of charisma, beginning his journey with the idea of charisma as influence and leadership, later experiencing a profound shift toward seeing it as an essence, something remembered and revealed rather than merely developed. The conversation sets out to explore charisma, not just as a skill set, but as a dynamic interplay of habits, mindsets, inner beliefs, and ultimately, a spiritual presence moving through an individual. Charlie's work centers on practical communication skills fused with a deeper philosophical and spiritual inquiry into what it means to truly connect with others. In this discussion, he reflects on his own transformation from an awkward youth to a confident, spiritually aware man who views charisma as a manifestation of divine grace moving through human expression. The episode promises a rich journey into both the surface techniques and the profound inner work involved in becoming genuinely magnetic. Charlie describes charisma initially as a series of habits, mindsets, and beliefs that produce a subtle influence over others, helping them respond favorably, whether it's gaining a date, a promotion, or simply commanding the attention of a room. His early view was that charisma was predominantly an influence power, a skill anyone could learn. However, over time, he's come to see charisma more as a remembered attitude, an innate essence waiting to be uncovered beneath acquired behaviors. He elaborates on how this shift recognizes charisma as an interplay between cultivation and innate presence. It's not enough to just develop habits or tactics. There needs to be a genuine alignment with one's core self, which allows charisma to radiate naturally. The ability to influence is inseparable from the ability to be authentic, vulnerable, and present, making charisma as much an internal journey of self-acceptance as an external mastery of social dynamics. For Charlie, charisma matters because it addresses one of the deepest human desires: connection. His philosophical curiosity about why people do what they do led him to understand that most social effort is directed at seeking acceptance and belonging, whether that's in friendships, romantic relationships, or professional advancement. He observes that many people take a roundabout approach, focusing on achieving secondary markers like grades or wealth before seeking genuine connection, often delaying their true social fulfillment. Thus, charisma becomes a practical and spiritual tool to speed up that connection. Learning how to relate authentically and powerfully is not merely a social convenience, but a pathway to feeling accepted and secure in one's place in the world. This core longing for belonging and certainty underpins the reason people seek out charisma training, even if their initial focus is more tactical than profound. An insightful tension Charlie highlights is between learning unnatural habits that initially feel inauthentic and moving toward effortless authenticity. He explains the process as developing an ego of mastery before transcending that ego. At first, people must deliberately adopt behaviors that may feel foreign, adjusting body language, speech patterns, and social responses to compensate for earlier ingrained habits that don't serve connection. Over time, with practice and mastery, the goal shifts to letting those habits become unconscious and integrating one's vulnerability and true self into interactions. This transition allows for presence and spontaneity to blossom, and charisma then becomes less about social game and more about revealing the natural magnetism that was always latent within. Charlie encourages people to recognize that many ingrained habits are not identity-defining. They can be unwound and replaced without sacrificing authenticity. Charlie addresses a frequently misunderstood facet of charisma, which is its inherent neutrality. Charisma itself is not inherently good or bad. It is a tool that can be wielded for positive or destructive ends. He draws historical examples: Martin Luther King Jr. and Adolf Hitler, both undeniably charismatic, but vastly different in moral orientation. The difference lies not in the charisma itself, but in the values and intentions behind it. This ethical component is critical for anyone pursuing greater influence. Charisma must be rooted in integrity and benevolence, otherwise, it risks becoming manipulative or harmful. Charlie advocates learning from charismatic figures across the spectrum, including controversial personalities, to understand the mechanisms of influence without endorsing their values. A pivotal part of the discussion revolves around 6 key mindsets that Charlie identifies as foundational to charisma. These include the unwavering belief that no matter what, I will be okay, which gives people the courage to take social risks and be vulnerable. Another is caring more about character than reputation, emphasizing integrity over external approval. He stresses impeccable honesty to cultivate conviction and trustworthiness. Further mindsets involve abandoning the need to convince everyone, focusing instead on authentic matches, proactively sharing one's purpose and values early in conversations to invite connection, and going there first, being the person who initiates humor, praise, or vulnerability to break ice and foster warmth. Together, these mindsets create a robust internal framework that supports both social efficacy and deep interpersonal resonance. Expanding beyond a singular model, Charlie outlines different charismatic types, each with its own appeal and energies. High-conviction individuals exude certainty that draws followers, exemplified by figures like Steve Jobs and Conor McGregor. Authentic types, such as Joe Rogan, build deep trust through honesty and transparency. The funny type leverages humor to bond with others effortlessly. Empathetic charisma invites emotional openness and connection, as Oprah Winfrey demonstrates through her profound interviewing style. Finally, energetic charisma, as embodied by Will Smith, engages with lively physicality and enthusiasm to uplift and attract others. Charlie encourages identifying personal strengths and desires to lean into one or more of these styles to find authentic ways to connect. Charlie shares his own journey from shy, awkward youth to confident social leader, emphasizing that transformation often starts with conscious imitation and deliberate practice. He recounts early experiments with pickup lines inspired by Neil Strauss's The Game, adapting tactics to fit his ethical framework. Over time, these external behaviors became internalized, producing real shifts in how he related to others and how they responded. Importantly, he highlights the necessity of humility and experiment, accepting being a beginner and navigating social discomfort as part of growth. This process allows one to build real mastery rather than superficial charm and opens the door for more profound self-expression and ease in social contexts. Speech and nonverbal communication are underscored as potent elements of charisma. Charlie points out that most people live in a box with restricted physical expressiveness and small gestures, which undervalues their presence. Expanding bodily openness, such as fully extending elbows during conversation or taking up more physical space, psychologically boosts confidence and others' perception of command. In speech, he advises minimizing filler words like and like to convey greater conviction and clarity. Silence, surprisingly, is a powerful tool to captivate listeners, creating space and tension that draws attention. Tonal control and speaking from the diaphragm also contribute, though Charlie cautions against excessive modification that sacrifices naturalness, advocating instead a balance between technique and self-acceptance. Charlie reveals a critical turning point in his personal and professional story. After attaining outward success, career, relationships, financial stability, he confronted an internal void marked by loneliness and emotional pain. This gap led him toward inner work involving plant medicine and deep exploration of his psyche. Through these experiences, he uncovered an overemphasis on control and external achievement at the expense of presence, play, and emotional integration. He describes the realization that true charisma cannot rest solely on learned behaviors, but requires healing old wounds and embracing all parts of oneself, including the vulnerable and shadow aspects. This journey from striving to be better to receiving oneself fully represents a core transformation necessary for authentic magnetism. A particularly powerful insight Charlie shares involves reconnecting with the often neglected feminine aspects within himself, such as intuition, receptivity, creativity, and emotional openness. Growing up with rigid gender norms, he had closed off much of this side, leading to emotional dependence on others and missing a vital internal balance. Healing in this area has allowed Charlie to expand his capacity for vulnerability and relational depth, both with himself and others. He sees the masculine as a structural, directing force and the feminine as the life-giving energy that animates presence and connection. The integration of these energies enriches charisma, making it more dynamic, empathetic, and ultimately more whole. Toward the close of the conversation, Charlie articulates a transcendent understanding of charisma as the divine or universe expressing itself through a person. The Greek origin of charisma points to a gift of grace bestowed by gods, suggesting that true charisma is less about self-effort and more about becoming a vessel for something larger than the self. He describes moments in his life and career where this awareness emerged, a surrender to an unknown force moving through him to inspire others. This spiritual conception demands both courage and humility, as it involves trusting an unseen guidance without full control. It accounts for the ineffable quality that separates charismatic leaders and artists from mere skilled communicators.